MosesLadd served in Company B, 21st Regiment, Wisconsin Volunteer Infantry. A Menominee Native American. By that I mean he was half white, half Menominee. He had a white father, Joseph Ladd. Moses served as the chief scout for General Sherman during the famous March to the Sea. He scouted the right flank and is possibly the most south that a Union soldier traveled in during the war. He performed the job so well that in 1870, General Sherman came to Amarillo, Wisconsin just to offer Moses a house in Washington, D.C. as a reward for his service. Now what happened there is there were 3,000 veterans at the shoreline, and this boat pulls up, and General Sherman gets off, and they brought his luggage onto the dock, and these 3,000 soldiers kind of crowded the dock and kind of forced General Sherman to start a speech, to give a speech. So General Sherman started the speech, but then laid eyes on Moses, who was in the background. He dropped this piece of luggage he had in his hand. He stopped mid-sentence during that speech and walked through the crowd over to Moses, and that's when he offered him a house. But Moses turned down the offer, saying he could not leave his hunting and fishing grounds in the town of Poigan, which is about 7 to 8 miles west of Winnicott. Now, in 1848, him and his sister were not living on any type of reservation or on Indian grounds at all. They lived among the white people. They had a house, they had possessions. His sister's name was Susan. In 1848, they were offered what was called the Blood Treaty, and what a Native American could do at the time was sign up for the blood money, but declare yourself white and give up your Native American part of it, at least on paper. And so Moses and his sister both did not want to go to a reservation, and thus they had to be declared white, and they took the money. I forget what it was, like $250 or something. It was a tremendous amount of money back in those days for them. But in 1876, he became the chief of the Menominee. Now, the odd part about this is by taking that blood money in 1848, he should have never been declared a Menominee anymore. But his grandfather was a well-known chief in the Menominee, and his ancestors were all chiefs. And so the Menominee people came up to him and asked him if he would please become their chief. They needed a good chief, and he took the job. He ended up going to Washington, D.C., where he met General Grant in 1876. And while he was there, the government took 4 photographs of him, which are in the Smithsonian Institute right now. The photograph on the cover came from the Smithsonian Institute. I, by law, cannot make money on this photograph. I didn't pay for it. But I can put it on a brochure like this so you can see it. As the chief of the Menominee, he moved to Kashina, and I think he was chief for about 5 or 6 years. Afterwards, he moved back to the town of Poigan. In 1923, he died during his 3rd stay here. The 2 previous days, they got his health back together, enough where he could go back to his hunting and fishing grounds. Because he died in 1923, at the 21st Infantry reunion, they did a memorial service for him, and they honored him because of his heroic deeds and good disposition. He was known to kind of joke around. Even during battle, he was known to joke around. Just say funny things, put people's minds to ease a little bit and get them so they weren't so fearful in battle. He's also credited with saving 3 lives in battle, and one of them is the great uncle of Lori Shawhan. If you know who Lori Shawhan is, her great uncle Jeremy Reardon was wounded. Moses dragged him off the field, got him help. They ended up taking his arm off, but Reardon went back home to Manitowoc and ran a hardware store there, and later became the county sheriff. And I gave a talk on the Veterans Home, and I gave this story to the Manitowoc Historical Society, and Don, her husband, was in the audience, and Don left right in the middle of my talking, and well, Don's got something to do, you know, but as soon as I was done with my speech, here comes Lori in, and I had not met Lori before, I just knew Don, and she came up to me just bawling like a little baby, and I said, what did I do? Did I say something wrong? And she said, no, but I've been looking for this story for years, for like 60 years she was looking for that story, and I presented it. So she was really happy. So with that, we can get on with our ceremony. In Native American ceremonies, it's not expected, but it's honorary to smudge the grave site to ward off any evil spirits. It purifies the air around the grave. And so you'll see a smudge stick in front here. All that is sage that's burning. Native Americans tend to take like dried up cedar branches, the ends of the cedar trees, and the smudge stick and burn them together. And so they'll always put it in like a turtle, half of a turtle shell, and leave that run during their ceremony. Yeah, I was going to say that one reason that I was able to find some of this stuff on MosesLadd is he married Charles Greenough's daughter Mary. Now, everybody heard of the Greenough Mansion in Kaukauna? We used to have Civil War reenactments there years ago and stuff. Anyway, that's where Charles Greenough and Mary had lived at one time. That was his estate. And anyway, Moses ended up marrying Mary.
The family was well known.
Yeah, very well known.
And ran trading posts.
All the way through the valley.
Justin Greenought was Charles' father. He was the son-in-law of Charles Lund. He was Church Commandant.
Yeah, these guys were all fur traders. And of course, back in those days, all you had were Native American women around, so that's where you ended up with a wife.
And
very few white people were here, women were here.
One of the last videos were the Civil War time, and they both later, she married either a sister or a first cousin to General George Lee, the army of the Potomac. There was a bunch of daughter in Appleton and all the other valley cities, the out of Reed Street.
And the other thing is, later on, Moses did get divorced. Later on, it was not a usual thing to be getting divorced in those days. I don't know the reason why that happened. They did have a couple of kids. I ended up doing the genealogy on Moses. I found I had about that much in a stack of papers, and one of the outside contractors asked me what I've been up to lately, and I said, well, I'm working on the genealogy of a Menominee Native American, and he was a scout for General Sherman. And the guy says, well, what was his name? Out of curiosity. And I said, MosesLadd. And he said he was Menominee, and I said, yeah. And he says, well, I know a Robert Ladd up by Tigerton who's Menominee. And I said, well, I need to get a hold of him, at least find out. And he says, when I see him, I'll tell him about it. So about 3 weeks later, all of a sudden Bob walks into my office at work, and I knew right away who it was. I mean, except for the hairdo on this photograph, they are almost identical. It's really eerie, but they were so similar, I knew right away who it was. And I invited him over to my house, and he came over that evening, and it's the only time I've had a grown man cry on my dining room table. He was so happy to have his family tree. He said his family had been trying to find information for years and could find nothing on him. And here I presented it and gave it to him, the whole package. So he was really pleased. Well, I'll let the ceremony go on.
Right.
Thank you.
As we remember MosesLadd, let us cherish his example as a patriot and a defender of those principles he believed to be right. Let us forget his failings, for he was human, remembering only his virtues. Let us so live when that time shall come, that those we may leave behind us may say above our graves, here lies the body of a true-hearted, brave, and earnest defender of the Republic.
The sons of the Union veterans of the Civil War present to MosesLadd a rose. May we always honor men like Moses, a true patriot. May future generations emulate the unselfish devotion of giving them the real history of our heritage.
On behalf of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, for whose integrity and unity our late brother MosesLadd offered his service to the country, I deposit this flag.
It seems well that we should leave Brother MosesLadd in rest, to rest in honor, where over him will bend the arching sky. As he was then, so he is still, in the hands of the Heavenly Father. Let us also then remember those that are dead. May the blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and the grace of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ rest upon and abide with us forever. Amen.
Amen.
Our service has ended. Dismissed.